Now, the war in Ukraine has entered 43rd day and there seems to be no end to Russian hostilities. On Wednesday itself, Ukraine has warned residents of eastern Ukraine to evacuate from Kharkiv and Luhansk as well as Donetsk immediately or face death. This is almost a warning that was given out. Russia has been on relentless bombing spree, intensifying attacks in the country's southern and eastern parts. Luhansk governor has warned that Russia is building up troops for an offensive in the coming 4 days. He's also claimed that Russian forces continue to attack the city of Popasna with rocket launchers and aircrafts, due to which evacuation process of civilians has now been hampered. Meanwhile, Russia has been further isolated globally over the massacre of Bucha. On Thursday, UNGA will hold a vote to expel Russia from Human Rights Council. This comes days after Zelensky spoke at the UN Security Council and demanded Russia's expulsion from the UNSC. Russia has called the killings at Bucha to be orchestrated to derail peace talks.
В пути пропагандистская машина Запада и Украины работает исключительно на раздувание истерики вокруг видеоряда, который был снят украинскими, как мы понимаем, военными, Украинской службой безопасности в городе Буча Киевской области. Мы склонны думать, что причина заключается в желании найти повод сорвать ведущиеся переговоры. Причем это сделать именно в тот момент, когда, как говорится, забрезжил пусть еще не очень яркий, но все-таки свет.
All right, let me quickly cut across to Rajesh Pawar joining us live. Rajesh, we know that there's been growing outrage globally over the human rights crisis that's unfolding in Ukraine. All fingers pointed at Russia. Russia, of course, denying those claims, saying that this is entirely orchestrated by Ukraine, only to derail peace talks between the two countries. While that said, we see that Ukraine is now warning residents of eastern Ukraine to evacuate areas like Kharkiv and Luhansk as well as Donetsk. What is the threat that's looming according to the Ukrainians?
Look, Nabila, there has been a universal outrage across the world on what came out from Bucha, the pictures, the videos, and rightly so. That kind of thing is not accepted in 21st century. But having said that, let me tell you, Russia has termed it as the biggest information attack to derail the peace process, and none of the sides, we cannot take sides in this. There has to be a neutral inquiry in this as demanded by Russia and China, and I think that should be our stand till the time we know who these people were who were killed, or which side killed them and how they were killed. Having said that, about eastern Ukraine, there has been intense fighting going on in whole of East Ukraine, and let me tell you, Luhansk and Donetsk cities are already under Russian control. So the major population centers in the oblast are already under Russian control. So Ukraine making this call that they should vacate this. I think this is for the people living in the outskirts, in the villages, and smaller towns, and which will further increase the influx of refugees to Lviv and to neighboring NATO countries, also to Kyiv, where people have started returning back now. Nabila.
You know, we're looking at 43 days of this war. If you could give us an understanding, how is Russia stepping up its attack? Any region that's currently being bombarded heavily? In your view, what are those areas that Russia is now focusing on, and what kind of ammunition have they upped?
Look, the areas around Kyiv have been totally calm for a week. As I said, I've sent certain reports how the barriers all over the city, the roadblocks which were put there every 100 meters to deny these roads used by the enemy forces, have been slowly removed from all over the city to ensure there is a smooth flow of traffic. And the reason, what this indicates is that probably Ukrainians do not fear any kind of attack on their capital city now. But the fighting in the east of Ukraine continues, there's no doubt about it, and it's heavy fighting. And we are getting reports that America, what Biden said yesterday, is supplying more weapons, Britain giving more lethal weapons, which indicates that this fighting is going to continue for a long time to come. Nabila.
You know, Rajesh, we understand in the latest that the Luhansk governor has warned that Russia is building up troops for an offensive in the next 3 to 4 days. This is the threat that's now looming. In the next couple of days, Luhansk region could face an offensive. This is what Ukraine claims, but is that on target for Russia?
Look, Nabila, it was very clear. Russia made it very clear, and we all knew it, that Russia will not stop this war till the time they have whole of Donbass, which comprises of Luhansk Oblast or province, and Donetsk Oblast, which is still not under 100% their control. So they will continue this offensive, whereas Ukrainian forces on their part are continuously resisting it. They are getting new weaponry now, more modern weapon with the switchblade drones and more jamming missiles coming in. Their potential, fighting potential is increasing every day, which will lead to this fighting being more fierce and will get prolonged now. Nabila.
All right, Rajesh, thank you very much for joining us with those details. We know that day 43 of this war, and it seems like Russia continues to step up its offensive on Ukraine. De-escalation by Russia in the central and western parts of Ukraine is currently being matched with corresponding escalation in the southern and eastern parts of the country. Attacks are now being mounted from land as well as the Black Sea. Under its phase 2 of military operations, Russia has now intensified its attacks, taking out the deadliest weapons from its arsenal. Could this signal the next level of escalation? We're already looking at phase 2. How worse could this get? Let's have a look.
Caliber cruise missiles lift off from a small Russian Navy ship in the Black Sea, aimed at 7 different targets in southern Ukraine. A Russian Su-35 air superiority fighter taking off and conducting a strike mission on an undisclosed target inside Ukraine. A Russian anti-air system launching and hitting what is claimed to be a Ukrainian Bayraktar drone, an unmanned system that has been giving hell to Russian vehicles in the weeks gone by. And these latest images of Russian Onyx supersonic cruise missile being launched at Ukrainian targets in the eastern part of the country. The de-escalation by Russia in the central and western parts of Ukraine are being matched with corresponding escalation in the southern and eastern parts of the country, borne out by an unending stream of footage of the targeted attacks.
The domination of eastern Ukraine will require sustained escalation in this part of the country. And that's what we are witnessing as we travel through the Donbas region.
The Russian forces are regrouping with attacks from land and from sea. The southern part has become the prime target in the second phase of war.
In the airspace above Ukraine, Russia continues to be challenged formidably by Ukraine's weapons. This is a Russian Su-35 air superiority fighter that was shot down using NATO weaponry earlier this week. The pilot now in Ukrainian captivity. But could Russia be planning to deploy its stealth fighter, the Su-57, to conduct strike missions in Ukraine? The Su-57 is the 5th generation fighter built to remain barely visible to radar and other sensors, and could trump Ukraine's air defenses or at least make life more difficult for them. A citizen's video in the early days of the war was believed to be Su-57 on a test bombing mission over the city of Zhytomyr west of Kyiv, though this advanced aircraft type definitely hasn't been deployed in any real numbers. With Putin narrowing his attacks to the southern and eastern parts of Ukraine, the strength of Russia's military could become more concentrated. With thousands of square kilometers of Ukraine already laid to waste, could what come next be Putin's most decisive escalation? With Mausami Singh in southern Ukraine and Geeta Mohan in eastern Ukraine, Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, now days after the first lot of civilian death bodies that were found in Bucha, Ukrainian forces continue to locate more. In the 5 days since Ukraine reclaimed Bucha, death of more than 300 civilians have been confirmed. India Today's Gaurav Sawant was the first Indian journalist to report from Bucha. He is now returned to the Kiev suburb. The West is now accusing Russia of massive war crimes in Bucha. Moscow in turn claims that Ukraine has now staged this massacre to derail peace talks. Here's what happened.
Pope Francis kissed a battered Ukraine flag brought from Bucha to drive home the shock and agony of the world at the mass killings in this little town on the outskirts of Kyiv.
After World War II, an attempt was made to lay the foundations for a new history of peace. But unfortunately, we are not learning. The old story of competing great powers has continued, and in the current war in Ukraine, we are witnessing the impotence of United Nations.
Even as Bucha coped with the brutality unleashed on its people, more bodies surfaced as special forces of the Ukrainian army sanitized every lane of the suburban city.
There is some activity that is going on there. There is some suspect that seems to have been spotted. That area, there are Ukraine army personnel who are deployed here. We've been asked to stay back as these personnel keep an eye on activities that are going on in Bucha. Remember, Bucha is being sanitized. Every lane of Bucha is currently being sanitized. This is the heart of Bucha, and the special forces are here. And they're clearing this area. They're clearing every area right now, going from lane to lane, clearing areas. There was some suspicious activity that was noticed, and that is why they're sanitizing this area before they leave. Now, everyone who's got here, their background is checked, and only once their antecedents have been verified are they cleared to move forward, or they're detained. In Bucha, it is still feared that there are some pockets where there could be either some spies, soldiers or fighters who could still be hiding, and that is why this clearance operation is currently underway.
Ukraine claims more than 300 civilians were brutally killed in Bucha by Russian forces. Moscow claims its army had no hand in the killings, as Russian troops had left Bucha days before the bodies were found.
What's extremely significant is President Zelensky of Ukraine has sought international assistance to carry out an independent investigation. Forensic investigators have been sought from several countries to come to Bucha and gather information and intelligence and evidence against Russia for alleged war crimes. According to the government in Ukraine, it's the 64th Motorized Division that had its brigades here in Bucha, and international investigations are actually going door to door. One, gathering information in terms of evidence that people may want to give, also video evidence, and two, when postmortems are carried out, evidence is being gathered of crimes against women, crimes against innocents in terms of their hands being tied behind their backs before they were shot dead. All of that evidence is being gathered, and teams of doctors are also going to help people. For example, this is the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, that's also going to provide medicines and other assistance that people may require. In Bucha, on day 42 of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, with cameraman Lalit Mohan Joshi, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
All right, now, while parents are fighting for their motherland at the war front, some teenagers are also seen standing by them in an attempt to help the army. In Odessa, some teenagers have created a checkpost and are guarding it with their toy guns. Teenagers say that they also want to help Ukrainian army. Here's Moshmi Singh with that report from Odessa.
On our way on the outskirts of Odessa, we hit this barricade, and which was manned by these two youngsters, Ivan and Maxim. You can see both of them holding their toy guns. Yes, those are toy guns, but they have prepared this checkpost by themselves. In fact, they wanted to do it, and in participation with the civil defense here, they have prepared this entire checkpost. So you see, they are wearing a uniform, synchronized with their jackets and sweatshirts. And here they've built tires, put tires on the road. Here there is a manual checking that's happening in this on this entire site. Barricades and even all this done by you all? All the children?
Это была моя идея построить этот блокпост. Мы гуляли с моими друзьями, нам стало скучно. Мы увидели в интернете, что
Ivan is talking about the way he's created this entire thing. What did he say, Olga?
Ivan has told that it was his own idea. When war started, they saw our army, they saw everything in the network, and they have decided that they need to help our army as they can. Their children, they made it themselves. They asked, of course, adults helped them with everything to construct this, but the idea was child's.
Their idea, and you know...
And also, they want to do something to help our army.
So here we have sir from the civil defense. Can we have a word with him? Yes, children, sir, are very active and energetic.
Оружие. Да, и они с утра идут в школу, учатся, потом приходят сюда.
Importantly, a big message. Olga, what did sir say?
He said that people in Ukraine, before this war, there were a lot of nationalities who lived in Ukraine in peace. But when war starts, all these people of different nationalities, in Odessa region there are more than 200 nationalities, different nationalities, and they became one nation, yes. People gathered together, they are ready to help each other, they are ready to protect our earth. Because people want to be independent. Ukraine wants to be an independent country. It was before Russian aggression. And even these children, they understand that this is important. It's like a game for them. Yes, it's like a game, but they love their homeland.
Батько наш Бандера, Україна мати, ми за Україну підем воювати. Батько наш Бандера, Україна мати, ми за Україну підем воювати. Героям слава!
Слава нации!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Truly, this is a undying spirit of Ukraine, relentless. And you know, even as we talk, these are cold winds, you know, cold winds are blowing. Come on, Ivan, show us your bunker. So we'll take a look at Ivan's bunker created by children at this children's checkpost. We are in this bunker that has been created by Ivan and Maxim, and this is no child's play because these children are a part of the civil defense team, and that's why you can see that bunkers like these are a common scene in the suburbs and outskirts of the city. These bunkers have been prepared by Ivan, Maxim and his family members. You can see tires here, sacks here. In this medicine kit has been kept with all the necessary medicines. Here for a long haul you can see bread, toast, biscuits, water, and all preparations made. Here you have a blanket, minimum means of survival, but this is a matter of a fight for existence, and that's one reason that why the Russian army is facing such a stiff challenge, because the Ukrainians refuse to bow down, refuse to kneel down in front of the Russian aggression, and in fact it is the strong spirit that prevails in the entire stretch with the army. With media journalist Parminder Sharma, this is Mosmi Singh in Odessa for India Today.
Now, amid the heart-wrenching stories from the war from Ukraine, here's a heartwarming story of a baby born during war. While the country battles attacks by Russia, the brave mother of the infant appeals for peace. India Today's Mosmi Singh with more on that. Let's have a look.
India Today is getting you the untold stories, stories that are heartwarming, stories that are touching, and stories that are heart-wrenching. One of these stories was unfolding in Mykolaiv, which was bombed on the 10th, bombed on the 12th, and what you see in the arms of Anna is a baby of war.
Пусть Россия уходит, просто уходит к себе домой. Мы хотим просто жить, спокойно жить, без них. Нам и так хорошо уже.
ये बहादुर माँ रशियन में बोलते हुए रशिया को यूक्रेन से जाने के लिए बोल रही है.
За нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Ну, я после инсульта, я плохо разговариваю. Но хочу сказать, что...
She was born in Russia, Ural, and when she came to Ukraine, to Kherson at first, nobody told anything, and she lived all her life. There were not problems between people because of Russian or Ukrainian. Nobody forbidden to talk in Russian. So, because people like to work here. People like peace. People want to live in peace.